The old rancher lowered his eyes and quietly said, "I'm not good enough for you. You deserve someone younger, someone better." For a moment, the Apache woman said nothing. Then she stepped closer, took his weathered hand, and whispered a response that left him frozen in place. What she said next stunned everyone who heard it and changed the cowboy's life forever. The morning sun spread across the valley as Samuel Turner stepped onto the porch of his ranch house. At 63 years old, he had lived on the same land for most of his life. The ranch was not large, but it was everything he had ever known. The fields, the horses, and the distant hills had been part of his world since childhood. Every day followed the same routine. Samuel woke before sunrise, fed the animals, repaired fences, and checked on his cattle. The work was hard, but it gave structure to his days. Since losing his wife 12 years earlier, he had poured all his energy into the ranch. It kept his hands busy and his mind occupied. Still, when evening arrived and the work was done, the silence often felt heavier than it once had. One afternoon, Samuel drove into town to buy supplies. After loading feed and groceries into his truck, he noticed a woman standing beside a pickup with its hood raised. A few people glanced her way but continued walking. Samuel walked over. "Having trouble?" he asked. The woman smiled politely. "It seems so." After looking under the hood, Samuel quickly found the problem. A damaged hose had caused the engine to overheat. By chance, he had a spare in his truck. Within a short time, the vehicle was running again. The woman thanked him warmly and introduced herself as Elena. She explained that she worked with an Apache cultural center near the foothills. Her job involved organizing educational programs and helping preserve stories and traditions for younger generations. Samuel nodded and listened. There was something calm about her presence. She spoke with confidence, but without arrogance. Their conversation lasted only a few minutes before they went their separate ways. Over the next several weeks, they crossed paths again and again. Sometimes in town. Sometimes at local gatherings. Each meeting led to longer conversations. Samuel found himself looking forward to seeing her. One evening, a community event brought people together from across the area. Samuel almost stayed home, but decided to attend. Inside the hall, he spotted Elena speaking with a group of children. When she noticed him, her face lit up with a genuine smile. For the rest of the evening, they talked and laughed as though they had known each other for years. As they stood outside afterward beneath a sky filled with stars, Samuel felt something he had not felt in a long time. Hope. But along with that hope came doubt. In his mind, Elena was kind, intelligent, and full of life. He was simply an aging rancher who believed his best years were behind him. In the weeks that followed, Samuel and Elena spent more time together. Their friendship grew naturally, without either of them planning it. Sometimes Elena stopped by the ranch after finishing work at the cultural center. Other times they met in town for coffee or spoke during community events. Samuel found himself enjoying parts of life he had nearly forgotten. Elena asked questions that nobody else seemed interested in asking. She wanted to hear stories about the ranch, about the early days when Samuel worked beside his father, and about the lessons he had learned through years of hardship. She listened carefully, never rushing him, never treating his experiences as unimportant. For the first time in many years, Samuel felt truly seen. One afternoon, Elena arrived at the ranch carrying a basket of food she had prepared. They sat beneath the shade of a large tree overlooking the pasture. Horses grazed quietly in the distance while a warm breeze moved through the grass. Their conversation drifted from simple topics to more personal ones. Elena spoke about her family and her desire to preserve traditions that were slowly being forgotten. Samuel shared memories of his late wife and the loneliness that followed her passing. The honesty between them created a bond neither had expected. Yet not everyone viewed their friendship kindly. Small towns often notice everything, and people had begun talking. Some questioned why Elena spent so much time with an older rancher. Others assumed she must have some hidden reason for being close to him. Samuel overheard several comments while visiting town. He pretended not to care, but the words stayed with him. That evening, he sat alone on his porch long after sunset. The more he thought about it, the more convinced he became that the townspeople were right about one thing. Elena deserved a different future. She deserved someone closer to her age. Someone who could offer more than an aging ranch and a man carrying years of loss. The next time she visited, Samuel seemed distant. Elena noticed immediately. After a long silence, she finally asked, "What is troubling you?" Samuel looked toward the horizon before answering. "There is something I think we need to talk about." The seriousness in his voice made Elena's smile fade. For the first time since they had met, both sensed that an important moment had arrived. Neither knew that the conversation waiting ahead would change everything. The afternoon was quiet as Samuel and Elena sat on the porch overlooking the open fields. For a long moment, neither spoke. The distant sound of cattle and the gentle rustle of the wind were the only sounds between them. Samuel finally took a deep breath. "Elena, you are a remarkable woman," he said softly. "Kind, intelligent, and full of life." She listened without interrupting. "But I think you deserve more than I can give." Elena frowned slightly. "What do you mean?" Samuel lowered his eyes. "I am not a young man anymore. My best years are behind me. You deserve someone younger. Someone with a future that matches yours." The words hung heavily in the air. For months, Samuel had carried those fears in silence. Now that he had spoken them aloud, he felt both relieved and heartbroken. Elena remained quiet. Samuel took her silence as confirmation that he was right. Then she slowly moved closer and looked directly into his eyes. "What makes you think youth is what I value most?" she asked. Samuel did not know how to answer. Elena smiled gently. "When I first met you, you stopped to help a stranger when everyone else walked past. You never asked for anything in return." She paused. "Since then, I have seen your patience, your honesty, and your kindness. I have watched how you care for people and for this land." Samuel felt emotion rising in his chest. Elena reached for his hand. "You keep talking about what you think you lack." Her voice became softer. "But I see something different." Samuel looked at her, unable to speak. A warm smile crossed her face as she squeezed his hand. "To me, Samuel, you are perfect." For a moment, the world seemed to stand still. The doubt he had carried for so many years began to fade, replaced by something he thought he had lost forever. The possibility that he was worthy of love once again. Samuel sat in silence, holding Elena's hand as her words settled deep within his heart. 4 years, he had measured himself by his age, his losses, and the things he believed were no longer possible. Yet Elena saw none of those as barriers. She saw the man behind them. In the days that followed, something changed inside Samuel. He smiled more often. The weight he had carried for so long no longer seemed quite as heavy. For the first time in many years, he allowed himself to imagine a future that was not defined by loneliness. Their relationship became impossible for the town to ignore. Some people continued to whisper and judge from a distance. Others questioned how two people from such different backgrounds could become so close. But neither Samuel nor Elena paid much attention. They knew what others did not. Their connection had never been built on appearances or expectations. It was built on trust, respect, and understanding. One evening, they attended a community gathering together. As they walked through the crowd, people watched quietly. Then an elderly woman stepped forward with a warm smile. "You two look happy," she said. Samuel glanced at Elena and smiled. For once, he did not feel the need to explain anything. Because he finally understood that happiness does not arrive according to age, and love does not ask for permission from anyone. Months passed, and life on the ranch felt different than it had in years. The days were still filled with work, but they were no longer marked by loneliness. Elena became a steady part of Samuel's life, bringing warmth, laughter, and companionship into places that had long felt empty. Together, they shared simple moments that meant more than either could have imagined. They watched sunsets from the porch, walked through the pastures, and spoke about hopes they had once kept hidden from the world. The people around them slowly came to understand what had brought them together. It was not age, background, or circumstance. It was the quiet strength of two hearts that recognized something valuable in one another. One evening, as the sun disappeared beyond the hills, Samuel looked at Elena and smiled. Years earlier, he had believed he was not good enough. Now he knew the truth. Sometimes the right person sees your worth long before you are able to see it yourself. And maybe that is the real lesson hidden in this story. Sometimes people do not need fixing, and they do not need to become younger, richer, or different to be loved. They simply need someone who is willing to see them clearly, without judgment, and stay anyway. Samuel once believed his life had already reached its ending. Elena showed him that some endings are just the beginning of a different kind of story. One built not on time, but on connection. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think love like this can really happen in real life, where age, background, and differences do not matter as much as understanding and respect? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read them all and would love to know what you think about Samuel and Elena's journey. If this story touched your heart, consider liking the video and subscribing for more emotional stories like this. It helps bring more stories of hope, kindness, and unexpected human connections to others who might need them too. And before you go, remember this. Sometimes the people we least expect can become the ones who change our lives the most.